After the mass vaccination clinic at Dick's Sporting Goods Park closed early due to adverse reactions to the J&J vaccine yesterday, it has understandably raised some concerns. 9 Health expert Dr. Payal Kohli joins us now to talk about vaccine reactions, vaccine safety data, and hopefully with a little context in all this, Dr. Kohli, we can ease some concerns that people have. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
It's my pleasure.
So here's what we know of the symptoms from our reporter who is covering this today. People experiencing nausea, vomiting, some lightheadedness, some low blood pressure. We're talking 11 people out of 1,700. However, we know these folks were not considered high risk ahead of time. So can you help us understand what might have led to these reactions from this vaccine?
So the best way to think about this, Jenny, is to really think about the journey of the vaccine all the way from the company until it gets into your arm and you have a reaction. So it's first manufactured, obviously. So it's the possibility that this could have been a bad batch of vaccines. Maybe there's something in the manufacturer, something possibly in the shipping, which is the next step, is that it gets shipped to the site. Once you receive the vaccine, you actually have to reconstitute it, which means you have to dry it up and put it in saline, get it ready for injection. So if there was some problem with that, then of course you administer it. So the administration could also have been problematic. And then finally, once it's in the person's arm, then there are those known vaccine reactions that we know we saw in the clinical trials. And there's also the possibility of new or unknown vaccine reactions that could have occurred. So it really could have happened anywhere along that entire spectrum, all the way from manufacturer, administration, and then how the body reacts to it.
Of course, and now the investigation into this will hopefully help to answer that question. So Centura Health has said that the side effects these people experienced were consistent with what was expected. So there have been trials on this vaccine. What do we know about people in those trials having nausea, dizziness, etc.?
Yeah, so if you look at the FDA briefing documents, what we know is that in the Johnson & Johnson trial, there were 14.2% of people in the treatment arm that had nausea. But what I found most interesting was that there was 9.7% of people in the placebo arm that also had nausea. And we know that all they're getting is a placebo into their arm. So something about just the process of getting a vaccination does tend to induce nausea in people. Of course, a little more common with the vaccine just because it activates the immune system. Dizziness, interestingly, was not listed in the FDA briefing documents as an adverse reaction, but certainly nausea can trigger dizziness and other reactions in people. So it's not clear that this was very much outside of the usual expected reaction. What is a little surprising to me is that all of those reactions, all 11 of them, happened on the same day. And that's why I suspect the possibility maybe of a bad batch or something else that could be at play here.
Sure. And again, that's something the investigation is going to look to answer, right? Because we know what happened in trials, but now we see what's happening real world style. So, okay, last question. What would be some advice for people who are scheduled to get a J&J vaccine, perhaps a little nervous, maybe after what they saw happen yesterday?
Yeah, so I'm so glad you asked me that, because it's really important to know that this is a really good vaccine. And you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater here, just because a few people, and again, this is very few numbers of people at this site, 11 out of 1,700, like you said, and even fewer, obviously, across the country, had a reaction. Some of the reactions were expected, you know, more than 1 out of 10 people had them in the clinical trials. You don't want to assume that this is a bad reaction or something unexpected, or there's something wrong with the vaccine. So even if you're scheduled for a J&J vaccine, feel rest assured that the investigation will figure out why this happened, and you should feel comfortable and safe going to get your vaccine as scheduled.
Okay, Dr. Payal Kohli helping us answer some questions, put a little context into this conversation today. Thanks, Doc. Talk to you soon.